One of Nigeria's top TV interviewer, Mr. Laolu Akande, former presidential aide, has started a series of interviews with newly deployed Nigerian ambassadors. Here is the first, with Nigeria's permanent representative to the UN, Dr. Jimoh Ibrahim, CFR.
My name is Laolu Akande, and you are on to Inside Sources. Today, my take is going to be a review of the event that happened right here in Washington, D.C. earlier this week on Tuesday evening, where the Save Nigeria Coalition, which is a grouping of Nigerians and Americans who are interested in getting the American government to support the Nigerian government in quelling and curbing and ending the extreme violence that has been going on in our country for quite a number of years. At that event, there were two important things that happened. There was a recognition of American U.S. officials and faith leaders in Nigeria who were given award for their role and their voices in calling attention to the carnage, the bloodletting, the violence, the killings that has been going on in Nigeria. And one of the people that was honored at that event was actually Pastor E.A. Adeboye, the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. And in his speech, which was from his heart, he spoke for over 20 minutes. Pastor Adeboye expressed pain at the suffering of Nigerians, especially Christians, including his own pastors, who have suffered from the killings and the violence that has taken place. So he called for a global coalition to support Nigerian government and Nigerian people to terminate or at least end this violence that has been going on for years. He gave examples of some of his own pastors who were victims of the violence. He gave an example of one of the pastors in the Northeast whose newly born twin children were slaughtered by terrorists, but who still insisted on staying back to continue his work of faith. He gave the example of another member of the Redeemed Christian Church of God who was killed in Abuja because she was doing an early morning evangelism. And so Pastor Adeboye, at that event where he highlighted the issues of bringing together a global coalition, noted that it was important for the world, for America, to help Nigeria to solve this problem, to support the efforts of the Nigerian government, and to work together to bring terrorism and banditry and this extreme violence to an end. Now, I also spoke at the event where I was also a co-host, and one of the things that I said is that when we call attention to these things, when we call attention to the violence, to the killings, when we call attention to the bloodletting, the carnage that is ongoing in our country, we don't do it. We don't do it to make the government of the day look bad. That's not our intention at all. We do it because, being human beings, we cannot look away from situations where people are being killed, where people are being slaughtered like rams. Our humanity compels us to speak out. And that is why we always say here on Inside Sources that what we want to do is to get both the government and the people to put their hearts together. And like this event in Washington, D.C. Emphasized, to also get the Americans to lead a global coalition to bring support to the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people to end this carnage, to end this violence. And I made the point at that event. Now, I must also say that I'm delighted that Channels TV and Inside Sources and my humble self also received one of the awards, which was called the Voice and the Valor of Truth from the Save Nigerian Group, for which, we are delighted. And the reason why we do this, the reason why we call attention again to these issues is so that it can be brought to an end. At that event, the Nigerian ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Kayode Are, who actually is going to be featured on Inside Sources, he also sent another ambassador, Ambassador Aliyu Bill, to speak at the event. And so this was an event where every stakeholders were brought together to see how is it that we can get more support from the Americans, and like Pastor Deboye said, globally, to help us end this carnage. And that is what all of this is about. And so I received the honor and the award as the Valor of Truth 2026 of the Faith U.S. Nigeria Faith Heroes Award. I received it with delight because it's all about what we can do to end this crisis, to end this carnage, to end this killing, to end this extreme violence from which our people have been suffering. And there you have my take. Inside Sources will continue, and in today's segment, I'm going to be having an exclusive interview with Nigeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, an ambassador who just resumed less than 2 months ago, Ambassador Jimoh Ibrahim. And then on Sunday, at the Sunday edition, I will also be having an exclusive interview with Ambassador Kayode Are, Nigeria's ambassador to the United States. It's also his own first interviews. So both of them are being featured today and on Sunday on Inside Sources. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today, I have a most eminent Nigerian as my guest. He's the currently the ambassador and permanent representative of Nigeria to the United Nations. As a matter of fact, even though he just resumed, he had already won a major election as the chairman of the Fifth Committee of the UN, which is the main committee that does issues of budget, appropriation, and administration. He's also a lawyer, a politician, and a businessman who actually is a lifetime permanent member of the Senate of the University of Cambridge, where he also had a doctorate in business. Before that time, he had attended LSE, where he had his first degree in international relations, in Oxford University, where he had an MSc in mega projects, and also had a PhD among his many academic credentials, a PhD from the University of Buckingham. He had a PhD in modern war studies. Okay, so I'll take that again. And among his many academic credentials, he has a PhD from the University of Buckingham, where he had he specialized in modern war studies. I'd like to welcome not back. He's not been here before. Take two. I'd like to welcome for the first time to Inside Sources a distinguished senator who, before his latest appointment, was also the chairman of the Inter-Parliamentary Committee of the Nigerian Senate. So, I guess he's no longer a sitting senator, but he's a senator for life. I'd like to welcome Senator Jimoh Ibrahim, now ambassador and permanent rep to the United Nations for Nigeria. My brother, it's good to see you on Inside Sources.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you. Nice to be here.
It was quite a while to reel out your credentials, which I must say are quite very impressive. You certainly have an illustrious, credentials academically, and also, of course, you are well known in politics and business. Thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for having me. Apologies for the long CV. Must have been used to exuberant on my part.
No, but it's important to define who you are and what you have accomplished. So I normally start my conversation around the future of the country, and I'd like to ask my guests that if you look at where Nigeria is today, do you think we are on course to that great future that many of us believe is the destiny of our country?
Honestly, Nigeria is on the right path. And I'll be honest with you. If you look at the data from the past, before we get to where we are, it will confirm to you Nigeria is currently on the right path to success. I don't want to go back so much on the trajectory, but let me just recall the fact that President Muhammadu Buhari, of blessed memory, printed 30 trillion naira.
Yeah, that's right.
So now, if you print 30 trillion naira, that is heavy money supply against outputs. What do you call that? Inflation. So you are allowed to print money. We call it ways and means.
Yeah.
Provided it's focused on capital projects.
Yeah.
Like if you print money to fix a Jakarta, fantastic. But where you print money to do the current expenditure, you have problem. So the aggregate opinion is that you have high money supply, less industrialization on outputs, then you get inflation. And you will see this clearly in Latin America after the Second World War, and perhaps Argentina was a clear example. And what would that lead to? Food insecurity. So when you have food insecurity, you have what? Unemployment. And then you may have some insurgency if care is not taken. So this is what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu inherited. But I told him then, publish the economic data as handed over to you. But you know, he believes that it's the same party, leadership and all that. So he was going to manage situations. But I was wondering how he will manage 30 trillion printed. So we were almost at economic dangerous lane. So the data that was handed over to Bola Ahmed Tinubu was that you have 1% cash ratio to GDP. What does this mean? For whatever you want as a country, only 1% is in cash. And you assume duty as chief executive of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Why do you expect 99% cash to come? What will you? The only thing you can do is to sell your assets and convert to cash,
or take loans.
Or take loans. Otherwise, you cannot use 1% debt ratio. I mean, cash ratio to your GDP to manage the economy.
It's too small.
Too small. So the per capita income was poor. So you know clearly you are at the economic dangerous lane, I call it. And on one hand, on the other hand, Bola Ahmed Asuwaju, the president of Nigeria, was facing 11,886 abandoned federal projects. 3 of the projects is 60% of GDP, of the worth of the economy.
If it were delivered.
If it were three.
Yeah, no, that
so exactly, delivered. 3 was just equivalent to 60% of what loan, of your debt. External debts.
Right.
So now you have them, Ajakuta, you spent $12 billion on there. You are on site for 42 years. You haven't produced one single iron. And you are still on site. Imagine a child born 42 years ago, and then is still choking the breast from the mother. I mean, it's quite very painful, isn't it? So you have Second Niger Bridge. You spent $7.6 billion there, but the bridge is 37% completed. You have SWOP, which was introduced by Jonathan, from the raking of the revenue from petrol. And you know that it doesn't have address. So if you want to test it, just call a taxi driver in Abuja and say you're going to touch SWOP office. Or what do you normally do? You use Uber. So put Uber in your app, in Abuja or your phone, and say take me to SWOP head office. A project you spend $7.2 billion on, yes, you have a head office. So that was no head office. So if you look at these 3 projects and you add aggregate together, and you like $100 billion Nigeria is owing, so you know what this constitutes in percentage. And at the time I checked last, Nigeria then was owing about $70 billion. So this 3 project was almost about $32 billion from it. So we have 11,886 of church projects. Look at the National Library, add that on. You know, that started about 18 to 20 years ago. No single book is in that library. The building has not been roofed. We spent over more than 1 or 2 trillion naira on that. And we cannot even continue because you have an agreement in that contract that says any equipment left on site, if default in payment arose from the government deficiency or government lateness, then the equipment shall be converted to renter, and it will mean that the government have rented the equipment, and you pay the value of the renter before contractor can resume work. So you rented the equipment for how many years now? 20 years. The lease renter is more than the value of the project. When Jonathan came, I asked him the simple question, President Jonathan, and I said, why is it that you didn't complete the library project? He said, oh, Jim, when I came, you have a PhD, you should not be interested in the library. He said I was, but I told them to bring the file. And I said, this was designed to be a 13-story building. But you know what I want you to do now? Roof it where it is. Just roof it so that we can complete the library. And the cost they brought was more than the cost of taking the 13 floors. So he then says, I took my hands off, I'm not going to do this. Then I went to President Buhari when I was doing the thesis, and I asked, Mr. President, what's happening here?
Which thesis now?
Which what?
You said when you were doing the thesis.
Yeah, that was my thesis in PhD on management science.
Okay.
The doctorate from Cambridge. Okay. I was writing on mega project, why they succeed and why they fail. So I had to do interviews specifically to the president. And I went physically to the president to ask questions.
Okay.
So I asked these questions from the president. For President Obasanjo, I said that, you know, you did Ajakuta. You know, the total project value was about $675 million from Russian Exim Bank. So you left the project uncompleted and you went into retirement then. Now you return back. You saw your baby still not
It's still there.
completed. Why didn't you complete it? He said, well, he went to Ukraine to ask for the contractor. And the contractor said, never. We are not going to do it again.
Why?
The contractor was India. So he went to India to ask for the contractor.
Okay.
And they said, no, we will not go to that site anymore. We won't do. He said, I will give you CBN blank check so you can complete the project. He said, no, we are not going to do. So from there, he said he flew to Ukraine to look for another contractor. But we know these people doing steel, metal things are an international association.
Right.
So obviously, they told him, no, we have a blacklisted, that project is blacklisted on our list. We are not touching it anymore. So that's how Jakarta was there.
They didn't know why they blacklisted?
Well, because of the way the ecosystem treated them when they were on site. So obviously, nobody will touch that anymore. And I think they was trying to deplete the project and then try to sell it off. And I told him, look, but if you look at, Akitude did a very good study on this, Olajide from Canada. And he said the EPI, the environmental impact analysis, ordinarily say you should not sell that project in Ajaokuta. You know what you did? He said, well, let's forget about EPI. Okay, fine. When you produce iron in Ajaokuta, assuming you complete the project, now you know you need to have conveyor belts to take the iron from the production machine to the Niger River or the River Niger there so that they can load into the ship.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the road to carry those big equipment and you don't have that. So he said, yeah, the conveyor belt was done. Okay, what about the dredging of River Niger? You keep dredging every year because no ship will come and bat if the dredging is not done.
Well,
so obviously, that can take the whole of the budget to dredge that river. That means that project can never work forever. So that went down. So when I completed that...
So what did Buhari say to you?
Yeah, I went to Buhari and I told him that, why didn't you complete the project? And then why? He told me, well, I cannot complete it because there's massive corruption there, and it's not something that anybody can. And then I told him, what about your own? I also know that you took loan of $5 billion from Exim Bank in China. And this Exim Bank was to do 10 airports.
Okay.
So Jonathan took this loan.
Yeah,
but you took over the loan, so you did Abuja, Lagos, and Kaduna. But the Kaduna doesn't have anger. There's no anger. Why is it that you produce the project without anger? Because people that embark from the plane have to be taken by bus to the airport. So the place supposed to, stay with the anger there, and people embarking, they say backing through the anger. And then he told me, Jonathan said, go and ask Buhari who commissioned the project. So obviously, you have these are the problems that Tinubu inherited when he came in. And you wanted him to solve all this problem in 3 years. He's just 3 years old in government, he will be 3 years old. That Tinubu anger. And people that in airports.
Okay.
So and then why? He told me, well, I cannot complete it because there's massive corruption there, and it's not something that anybody can. And then I told him, what about your own? I also know that you took loan of $5 billion from Exim Bank in China. And this Exim Bank was to do 10 airports.
Okay.
So Jonathan took this loan.
Yeah,
but you took over the loan. So you did Abuja, Lagos, and Kaduna. But the Kaduna doesn't have anger. There's no anger. Why is it that you produce the project without anger? Because people that embark from the plane have to be taken by bus to the airport. So the place supposed to, stay with the anger there, and people embarking, they say backing through the anger. And then he told me, Jonathan said, go and ask Buhari who commissioned the project. So obviously, you have these are the problems that Tinubu inherited when he came in. And you wanted him to solve all this problem in 3 years. He's just 3 years old in government, he will be 3 years old. He's already 3 years old. So he's 3 years old, and you want him to resolve all this dilemma. It's difficult. So looking forward to the future, he has introduced reforms. So reform doesn't come with some smiling faces. So it comes with some pains and all that of yesterday. And right now, I think things are looking fine. GDP to debt ratio is about 40. percent. So before President Buhari left, the debt servicing ratio of revenue to GDP was 96%. Meaning that for every 100 naira you get, 96 naira go to service your debt. But now it has come down to about 70%. So for every 100 naira you get, 30 naira will service 70 naira will service debt. You keep 30 naira for economic prosperity, and that is why most time the budget cannot get cash phase beyond 30-40%, oscillating all the time. This is just one of the problems that we have.
I mean, you've given quite, I don't know, quite insightful, but, also depressing, when you think of a project such as Ajaokuta.
Yeah.
And so let's follow up on that, because I know that the president has appointed somebody to be in charge of Ajaokuta, and I think they're working with the Chinese. Do you think that can help us revive it?
Well, to me, honestly, let me be frank on this. It's not about appointing Chinese company, because the environmental impact analysis is not favorably disposed to a Ajaokuta location for that project.
So what would then be the solution to that, in your own view?
I'd consider that. And what I recommended is a greenfield. If you are to start a project in a place that accepts environment, that is friendly to environmental impact analysis, right, you will spend $1.2 billion to construct the entire project. From zero to Z. But if you are to repair Ajaokuta, you are going to spend about 2.6 billion on phase 1 and 2. There are still phase 3 and 4 on top. And you can see. So it's twice than starting it on a green project. And one problem I must let you know here is that the iron oil you require to fuel to power that factory, if eventually you put Ajaokuta in, we only have 30% of that oil deposited in Itakwele or something like that. Itakwe. So it means that you have to import, all right, 70% oil from abroad. So it simply means that will be confronted with foreign exchange ratio. And the problem you have in that one is simple. It's that the price of iron produced locally will be more expensive than the iron imported. And that created a problem.
I don't know that this thing is tough.
It's really tough.
But so what you have described, most distinguished, and now, Excellency, is that we've suffered, the country has suffered from tremendous leadership challenges, even based on some of the things you've told us already about the decisions that were taken, which clearly wasn't the smartest when it was taken. Well,
leadership is at every level of organization, so also countries. So I wouldn't say much of leadership at the top level. That is the problem. Your driver is the leader of that car as long as he's driving you. And if you mess up, it can drive you into accidents. And it will survive. Haven't you seen many people when accident occur? Not you. Haven't you seen when by accident occur and then the owner died and the driver survived? True. You don't ask yourself why. You didn't do any investigation to find out why God was kind to the driver and wasn't kind to the owner of the car. So the same thing with the cook. So if the cook is the leader of the kitchen, at the time he's preparing your food. Yeah. If you mess up, you can poison it and you are gone. So leadership is at every level of organization. One main project to fail or succeed, a mega project where we have converging complexities, depends on what level of failure. It might fail from conceptualization of the project. I mean, why should a leader locate Ajaokuta in iron and steel in Ajaokuta when he has an environmental impact analysis, which is don't put it there for two reasons. Your now oil is not sufficient. Two, you don't have the road to transport this thing. You need to do dredging, and the cost of dredging can be much more than the cost of producing the factory. Yeah. And this dredging is not one-off. You keep dredging every other year. As the rain falls, then you have to go back to dredging. And these are the problems that we have. And so it's about leadership decision. Conceptualizing a project might lead to a project failure. Also implementation stage might be. Money wasn't a problem here, don't forget. Russia have set aside $670 million for us to embark on that project. And we needed $675 million to do it. So obviously money wasn't a problem. Right. There were enough money, but the project couldn't succeed for the 2 years after.
So I mean, I want us to have as frank as possible a conversation. So with the level of the problems, some of which that you've analyzed today, I'll make a comment and then you will respond. Go ahead. So I would have expected that, the president will come with his A game. Now look at what the president did in Lagos. Yeah. Everybody knows that, his cabinet in Lagos, the people that he worked with, top notch. And that's, that continues to be, some of his legacy up to today. But many of us haven't seen that kind of top-rated team. And of course, there are good people around him, certainly, but it hasn't been at the level at which he operated in Lagos. And I give an analogy like, it's like somebody who wants to play World Cup. You've been doing very well in national tournament, continental tournament, and then you'll be hoping that maybe one day you just go to play World Cup. And now you got a chance to play World Cup, but you're putting your second team, your third team. How do you respond to that in terms of the people that the president has chosen to keep key positions in this government?
You see, the point is that, let me be honest with you, the problem I think might be a challenge is the fact that there was need for the president to do a restitutional diagnosis of the Federal Republic of Nigeria when he took over. But he was very anxious all his lives about how Nigeria will be good and all that. So Lagos was too small, because he was part of Lagos.
Yeah.
He was born and bred there.
Yeah.
So you understand that. But in Nigeria, he got situational reports, maybe SSS breathing, also breathing, but that wasn't enough. You need to do situational diagnosis, ministry by ministry, and then when you finish, then you have to create strategy. And your action must be a reflection of your strategy. President is trying to do this, but at the same time, you need to drive people that are knowledgeable into the system.
Yeah.
For example, Ajakuta that we talked about, 25% of Nigeria budget, cash, is spent on importation of iron every year.
Look at that.
So you want to contain the 25% from running away from the budget so that the money can be home. And then you can use it effectively. But there's still also many people that study mega projects. I'm the first to have doctorate degree in mega projects in Africa. I'm the first to be given that in Cambridge since 1209. So you don't get them every
You have to find a place to implement whatever you have
there's a
done
difference between ordinary projects and mega projects. And our president is very, very, I love him, he's a very ambitious person. So he's doing the road from Lagos to Calabar. That's a mega project. Very big one. And about 60% of road mega project failed. Even when some mega projects are completed, they are not useful. That's how terrible the complexity can be. But in this one, he had the nostalgia and courage to say, I will see to the end of it. Coming to the people put in place. In politics, people help you to get to power. Asuwaju is somebody who will reward people. No matter whatever you can say. If you are loyal to him, you believe he also owes you. So this is the point. But I think during the second time, he should change a bit to make sure that very more qualified people are put into position, not people. And you have to look at because they are competing with the geocentric system. So if you have a minister who study maybe finance from 132 rated university in Britain, don't forget he's going to compete with somebody with the head of foreign reserve in America, who probably on the top of class in Harvard. So there is disparity, or who study from IFE or anywhere. I'm not saying those universities are not good, mind you, but I'm just saying that competitive knowledge is quite heavy in determining whether government succeed or fail. And I think the president are getting it right. He's getting it right. Wale Edu was University of London, so he studied economics. So he knows he could do the job. And then he did it for some time, maybe 8 or whatever it is. The young man is on board now. I think he's doing his best. So try and get qualified people as much as you can and put them there. There are some ministers that haven't said a word. I don't know what they are doing in cabinet. If you cannot defend good policy of the government that you are in, then you are not, you are just empty to yourself. So these are areas I think the president will look at. There are some ministers that are completely erratic. They are supposed to face the work of their ministry, but they are doing politics, distributing rights and things like that. These are not what Asuwaju appointed you to do. And Asuwaju normally give you clear direction of what you should do. There is a clear mandate. That mandate, you should go back to it and reactivate it and make sure that government runs fine.
Okay. Let's talk about the UN, because I said that if we don't take care, we'll be talking more about politics. So you got this appointment as the permanent rep of Nigeria, quite a very privileged position. Somebody said, a retired ambassador of the UN said that after the president, whoever is a country's permanent rep in the UN is the most important person besides the president when it comes to the image of the country globally, because virtually all countries are in the UN in one place. So it's a very critical appointment. So I wanted you to give us an update. I see that you've been elected as the chair, which you said during the introduction. That's a very powerful committee. Most people don't know how you managed to do that in less than a month or two. So give us an update. What did you meet on the ground? And what is your plan going forward in the UN?
Well, it's not everything we can say openly in diplomacy. We take some and then we use some language to decorate some. But the reality is that I think President Aswaji got it right. So you got somebody who went to Cambridge, Oxford, and Harvard, and LSE into the UN as permanent rep. So obviously that's that CV complete with any other CV in the United Nations. And we know ourselves. We are just 193 people here. So we are all our CVs are investigated by the UN. They are right in the data. You can access anybody's CV and even his certificates and all that. So obviously, I think my choice is the right peg in the right hole because I can now, bring my social capital network in terms of the advantage of my colleagues that we are all together in the United Nations. Now, the key issue here is I remember when I was appointed in your program, somebody said, what is people like Jimmy Ibrahim doing diplomacy? And I was just laughing. And when I checked the background of that person that said so, he didn't even study international relations, amazingly. And he was a permanent rep. Permanent secretary or whatever it is in the Foreign Affairs Ministry. That is misalignment of individual and role. But let's come to your questions. Yes, I came in here and then I did situational review. I got a clear mandate from Aswaju before I came in, Mr. President. One, to make sure that we're on top, that Nigeria is back. They want to hear that and they want to see that we get to the Security Council. So these are tough mandates, and I have to come. We are working on 3 Ds: development, democracy, demography, and diaspora. As our foreign policy major set points that we are going to be assessed upon. So the first thing I did was to study situational diagnosis, 24 hours a day, and then set up the 90 days rule, for transition of leaders. So when a leader is moving from one area to another, that's a transition. Your first 90 days matters. If the conclusion is that you are written off after 90 days, there's nothing you can do. Believe you me, after 90 days, if you spend 10 years there, that will make anybody to change his mind that you are now back doing well. So first 90 days was critical. And I sensitized my staff to know about that. So the next issue was the election. So we went and picked the right one, the major one, which is going to be the fifth committee, which has to handle the budget and administration of the United Nations. Many people believe that was too ambitious and it will not happen. Why would it not happen? I photocopy my Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard, LSE certificate, and I distributed around all the embassies, and we put an overbound on it. So you have the choice. Here is somebody who has these degrees, and there's another person. You can look at the capacity and check on the internet.
And you ran with
of course, and then we were able to
Chinese ambassador.
We were able to come up, and we won. So I became the chairman of
what was the what was the outcome of the election?
No, don't put that. Just
it's public knowledge, but
usually already that I am the chair, isn't it? So exactly. The budget is in my hands. The admin issues I share discussion about this. So and
you've already resumed in that office.
Yeah, we start taking over, handing over processes now because my focus is 2027 budget, which must be approved by General Assembly in September. And then of course I have to be sleeping in the office until we have a budget on 1st of January. And then our budget is on concessions, not on election. So every country must concede to it and sign. When a country says no, then the budget cannot pass. Now at the geocentric level on my resumption, we have United Nations 80 reforms, UN 80, which you are aware. You also know that this year United Nations will be 80 years old. Since 1945 to the present day, that's 80 years. That's why we have United Nations 80 reform. 81 is what we are going for in September. So the 80 reform, there have been challenges between the permanent member of the UN and the major contributor to our finances and member countries. And the challenges basically is that, look, I contribute out of money here. You'll be talking about sustainable growth, sustainable development. I haven't said anything for 80 years. Let's change this language to efficiency and effectiveness. And let's sort of marry some of these related organizations. So we want to do mergers of many arms of the UN that we think can function under one single head to create efficiency and effectiveness.
And that will fall under your committee.
That's exactly my job, really, to make sure that mergers are okay. Staff leaving the organization that are merged is a function of administration. Staff coming in is a function of alignment of the organization is a function of fifth committee. Funding this organization when they are already stabilized, when they are stabilized, is a function of the fifth committee. The budget itself, Membership paying their due, function of fifth committee, returning back money to the members who are paying excess for peacekeeping budget. It's all function of the committee. Bringing money in 1st of January for membership due, function of the committee. And again, some member says, oh, I'm not going to pay more, like America. So obviously, you have to bring them back to say, come, what's the matter? Why did you go wrong? Let's sit down, dine and then resolve all of this. So I think the reform basically is about efficiency and effectiveness, different from the hierarchical level of sustainable growth, the equal agenda, equality, blah, blah. But all of this thing has a new face, because there are lots of tensions in geocentric politics. You see the start of Hormuz, closure, and all that, Iran, Israel and all that, bombardment here and there, So we have breach of Article 24 and 27 of United Nations Charter, and then, of course, the preambles. So we have to look at this with a face in the new, and again, at home, it's Bola Aswaju Ahmed, president of Nigeria, divinates team. That's that. And I said, look, gentlemen, let's sit down. We all know this. We went to the same school, isn't it? So the issue here is this. Look, 25% of the world's population is in Africa. There is insecurity coming from Africa. The fact that Africa is excluded from membership of Security Council, permanent membership, it means that is the reason that naturally explains the insecurity in Africa. So if you do inclusive theory, inclusive modernization of the Security Council and have Africa right here, and by extension Nigeria, the giant of Africa, then you will reduce insecurity. 250 million people in Nigeria. If they are insecure, Africa is not secure. There's no way you can talk about security in Africa. Is it South Tome that have 190,000 people as population that talk about security? So obviously, we look at all of these issues, and Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president's mandate to us is that get the Security Council. So we are not waiting till next year. Immediately I was elected as chair of the budget and administration and appropriation. I started working on the Security Council. And I put in my colleagues around. And I said, look, against all odds, Nigeria will run for Security Council next year. So better adjust your system in Africa and ECOWAS, because Nigeria is going to run for Security Council. We cannot be waiting for 2028, 2029, 2030.
Yeah, because we normally have a roster.
Because,
so we are saying that
we have to run. Because you see, the Security Council will amend its rule any moment from now, and Africa will be into the Security Council. Now, if they give us 3 seats, we need to go back home and select who come inside these 3 seats, So what if it doesn't start with Nigeria? What will I tell President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? I don't want my head to be cut. So let's go to Security Council and not permanent member by next year. And when we are inside, we can fight within on how to be part of the 3 seats or 2 seats reserved for Africa permanent membership. So we have our own strategy. Like I said, it's all of them we can let go in an interview like this, my apology. But I can tell you that if there's anything I want as chairman of budget and administration of the United Nations, is Security Council seats for Nigeria. And everybody knows this. So my colleagues are aware of this. And I think we are working together. We're in tandem with their demands. We also have a lot of demands, that is coming up to the budget, and we will accommodate as much as we can. I can assure you one thing. Contrary to the argument that the United Nations will go bankrupt, it will never go bankrupt. We are going to have the budget successfully. The fact that the budget will not be passed, budget will be passed successfully. And I can tell you that everybody will be happy with the budget. And the peacekeeping operation will also go on. Okay. We are going to have that budget for that one pass. And
Nigeria is still the chair of the peacekeeping committee.
Oh, yeah, that is C30 you're talking about, 34. Yeah, we are chair. But because we didn't have a permanent rep, another country was appointed to be chair of that. But I'm me now, so I'm asking the person to leave the seat. But that doesn't take you to Security Council. It's just for peacekeeping. The bondage, because Nigerian soldiers and police particularly, police have actually disbursed about 16,000 men and women for peacekeeping operation over the years, and they got excellent results. So that's why we are chairmanship of the peacekeeping. But right now we are working heavily, not even about that much. It's about Security Council. If I deliver Security Council, I can return back home.
No, I mean, clearly, if you deliver Security Council,
so I will have peace with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And I go to Igbodako and go enjoy myself.
But let's talk about that. Part of the problems for the reform of the Security Council is the fact that the P5, the permanent 5,
yes,
not a good number of them, especially the Americans, they've been a little bit reluctant, and so what's your strategy, or do you think that is going to change their reluctance about the whole reform?
Because one of the first things you have to do, yes.
just for the benefit of our viewers, because the Security Council reform has been on for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, how do you think? And of course, don't divulge what you don't need to divulge. But how do you think that change can happen? That it's just not going to be rhetoric.
Just first of all, appreciate the Big Five as a matter of strategy. Why do you have to appreciate them? After the time in 1945 when United Nations was formed, African countries, many of them are not independent.
Yeah.
They were not even member of the United Nations. So how do you say
Nigeria
that they should be
in 1960.
that they should be member of the permanent membership of the Security Council? They were not even member of UN in 1945. The 1945 collapse, you remember, after the League of Nations, after the First World War. And you know why the League went down before the First World War? Just because America didn't participate in the League. So it went down. And then we had the First World War in 1918 ending, and then we had Second World War not quite long, started from there. And it was after the Second World War, when tens of millions of people died, that we come to South Africa that say that, look, never again
should this happen?
And then we must form United Nations where we won't see death. The life of men, young men, children, women, and young persons will be guaranteed for safety. Countries are equal, to the extent of their sovereignty, Article 1. And then we move on to say, no member state shall use force against another, Article 2.4. Member states shall refrain from interference into the internal affairs of another country, Article 2.7.
All of that.
Then you also know by side of this Genocide Act was signed in Geneva. And what does that one say? It compromised the Charter of the United Nations. That if any member country notices genocide in another state, it doesn't even need anybody consent to wipe out genocide and punish those who are behind the genocide. And you saw that happening many, many times. Right. Now, coming to the Big Five, so you have to appreciate them that gentlemen, come, you have a right. Because you formed your association when I was on there. I wasn't a member.
Yeah.
And you made yourself permanent member of your council when I was not a member.
Right.
But I'm a member of the geocentric system. And I'm causing security to your country. And you don't want me to be the one that have the cancer, that's coming with cancer. You don't want to be cancerous too. So when the COVID-19 came from China, south, nobody envisaged it. And the system was shut down completely. Yeah. So things have changed in contemporary time where you now need to look at the aggregate opinion of everything. The number of members of United Nations in 1945 is different from the membership right now. Membership has increased. Right. So the rules must change. And the argument we are making is that Africa is 25% of the population. Can you ignore them? No. So give them permanent seats in the Security Council. Think about this and come up with it. And while you are thinking, insecurity started in Africa again, and all of this problem happening. Do you want it to travel to your country? Ebola started sometimes, a disease that you cannot control, and you cannot stop it. See, as long as you cannot stop erosion from traveling from your country to another country, you don't have absolute sovereignty. So understand that, and let's put our people in. So that strategy works because they appreciate that. And you remember about a week ago when I delivered paper at the Security Council, where everybody was present, you saw that the way they received it. So China supported my position. Britain supported my position.
On what?
On the Security Council for Africa.
Okay. On the reform.
France supported, not reform, on Security Council. I said my job here is Security Council.
I know.
I have a clear mandate.
I wanted you to explain specifically what they supported.
They supported the fact that I call for urgent seats. The seats to Africa seats in the UN Security Council, permanent seats, particularly in Nigeria, should not be subject to more than discussion that we have done. Because it is lost. You want to assist Nigeria in Boko Haram, you want to assist Nigeria in this. If Nigeria is a member of Security Council, there are things that Nigeria can give for Security Council that will wipe out completely insecurity in Nigeria. If Nigeria is secured, you can take it for granted that Africa is secured. At least for nobody is secure, West Africa is secured.
And they supported.
Of course, Britain wrote there. Go there. It was live televised. It was live streamed. So check. I can give you the link. So you see clearly what Britain said. Don't forget, before then, Britain was in my office. We had some diplomatic discussions, and I was in America house to have discussion with my very well-respected diplomats, the United States of America permanent rep to the UN, Ambassador Conan Wazard. So I was with him, and we had a lot of useful discussion about this, all this engagement. We even discussed about Boko Haram issues and all that. But like I say, it's everything you can put on the air. But the key issue is that my mandate. The only way I can make Mr. President happy is not only my engagement in the budget as chair of the budget. That's enough to take home. That I mean, you, Mr. President, Nigeria is now controlling the United Nations budget. So what do you want to do with it? But that makes him happy. Absolutely. But you'll be more happier, and Nigerians will be very happy with me if we can say yes. This time next year, we say we are now in Security Council. So if I go back home and say, sir, I have delivered budgets. Chair of budget for Nigeria. We are now in Security Council. I'm going to Godako. I'm sure he will be able to give me some.
I believe so. I mean, that will
some support to it. And if I have to be here, why not? We continue. But what else are we looking for? Because we got the Security Council, you got the budget of the United Nations. Maybe we already got somebody now to be in Africa advisor to United Nations Secretary General. Yeah, that will last for another 3-4 years. You know, we have
your position as the chair of the budget committee is for a year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's for the General Assembly.
Yes, and that position will not come back to Nigeria again, maybe in the next 193 years. And that country have to go back and get it back. Okay. So these are the issues.
So quite a few issues around that, but I want to ask you clearly, the president has not been at General Assembly for 2 editions now.
Yes.
He came in 2023, missed it 24, 25. Is he going to come in 26?
The president is coming in 2026, I can assure you that. I won't say more than that. And this time around, the president will not sit on seat 120.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The president is going to sit on seat number 3.
Oh, how did you?
Front rows. Don't ask me. But the president of my country is going to sit in seat number 3 at the General Assembly.
Oh, wow.
So I think President Trump will sit between 1 and 6, but President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will sit in seat number 3.
That's prestigious.
I will climb the podium to seek for approval of the budget. I will pass the budget and I'll come down from the podium. I will sit in seat number 3, and as a Yoruba man, I prostrate and greet him. Even though I do that, I go home. Is that not enough for me? So the president is coming. Okay. That's what I want to know. The president is going to sit in seat number 3 at the General Assembly this year, and that shows significant efforts being made there to see the significance of Nigeria and then the impact of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Maybe the president is more respected now abroad than home, the way it looks like, because there's not so many invitations of about 3-4 countries like Salvador and some other country like Pakistan that want to even give me letter to give to President Bola Tinubu. They want to set up embassies in Nigeria, and I will deliver those letters to him when I go to. So if you can get about 10 countries doing more embassies in Nigeria, we get Security Council, we got budgets, so we got number 3 seats there at the General Assembly. I think.
By the nature of diplomats, generally, if you are sitting in the front,
you know what it means. I don't need to explain more. That's why I said, don't ask me how we got to that. So
and that means it's also probably going to be one of the people to speak first.
Exactly, and you know that we also have an incoming Africa advisor to Secretary General on United Nations in Nigeria during my time. So don't ask me how that got there.
Okay.
You also have the outgoing Secretary General. That is Amina Mohammed,
Deputy Secretary
General Amina Mohammed, who is also a Nigerian. But again, could it be end of the whole thing? Let's wait and see. Okay. There are lots of games going on in the UN.
There is a question that I have to ask you.
Yes.
So the tenure of the Secretary General is going to be over this December 31st.
Yes.
A new Secretary General has to be in place on the 1st of January.
Yes.
You know, I think by August they should have started the straw polling.
Yeah.
Does Nigeria have any chance at all?
Well, here we arrange things in order of preference, but you can contest against it. You know, that's the beauty of democracy here. Now, the Secretary General is zoned to Latin America.
The next one.
Yeah, the next one. And unfortunately, we don't vote to appoint Secretary General. One of the mandates of Security Council is to suggest or appoint Secretary General and send the name to the General Assembly. So on this 81st General Assembly that we are going to, President is coming, the name of Secretary General will be announced and sent to us by Security Council. But where?
That will be during Onga.
During Onga. Where
is it coming from?
where the General Assembly, where the Security Council, and you mean the Big Five, are not comfortable to where the Secretary General is zoned, for example, not theoretical, it means they need to appoint an acting Secretary General, because until they get the real Secretary General that they needed to have, because there are a lot of rules.
But that hasn't happened before.
Yeah, it can happen anytime. The world is changing. The dynamic things happening in the world. And if I tell you it will happen, you should know it will happen. Because if I share budget and admin,
you're on the ground.
I should get the information on what is happening. But clearly,
so there's a chance that in Nigeria might actually be the acting
I don't know. I'm not running for Secretary General, and Tinubu didn't ask me to come here and run for. And when people ask me, "Are you interested?" I said no, because Mr. President never asked me to come and run for Secretary General. What he wants me to come and do is return Nigeria back to the prestigious position of Giant of Africa, get us into Security Council. Those are the mandates. And honestly, I will never go against my mandate. I'm not going to add one penny to that one. So that is even enough for me to do. I cannot even sleep, because I'm going to be sleeping in the basement of the headquarters, because there's no December for me, no January, because our budget is by consensus. It's not by by vote. You have to negotiate. You have to visit everybody like I do every day here. You have to have dinner for groups. You have to have lunch to explain that differences, compromise where compromise is necessary. Use the right language, negotiate languages and all that. And break silence where you have to break silence. Give room for more negotiation, and then go to the six committees. All the six committees you have to go around, because there are lots of values for Nigeria in each of these committees. So I am not a candidate for Secretary General. I'm not running an election. I don't want it. What I want is the one that the President has given to me to stabilize. That's what I'm doing. But I am just saying that, for example, under our rules, if you are voting and you vote ties and you didn't meet the requirement, you keep voting. If at the time we voted here from morning to evening to the next day morning before a candidate can emerge, because the thing was tidying up and all that, and ties were, so you have to keep looking at all of this for a while. So obviously speaking, if the candidate where they zone Secretary to, which is Latin America, if they get a fantastic candidate, and I hope they can get one, if they get an satisfactory to the big five, then it becomes Secretary General. But if they say they can't get the one that is satisfactory to them, then there might be the need for them to appoint an interim Secretary General, because time is so short. Why they now set up a committee to go and look for
if they're going to have to appoint an interim Secretary General, would that be somebody who's already inside, or because it's an uncharted territory?
The choice belongs to them. But again, you also need to have your country's support. Don't forget, because you cannot just leave Lagos, Abuja, and come and say you will be Secretary General UN without Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu signature that you should go there. So obviously, it depends. I don't think Nigeria should be too ambitious. What I think as of now is that we need to have a seat in Security Council. That will be historic, because I can see that the president was not happy when he came first. I look at the audio of his speech, and he was quite not happy. He was a bit, I'm not coming here unless if you cannot be Security Council, what's the need for me to become here? And that also affect our finances. So if the president is not happy that we get Secretary General, so if we send budget, how do you think he's going to react to the social budget? So not only him, President of Ghana too, I read his speech, and honestly, it's intendium with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's speech. He is also not happy. He said, we've been here, we beg you, we did diplomacy, we did everything, we pay our due, we never, no. But that is not the approach. The approach is, let's appreciate them first that we are not there, because as at the time it was formed in 1945, we were not there. So we couldn't be permanent security member of war we didn't be association that we didn't belong to. So we appreciate them for that. Let's also appreciate the fact that they have done a lot of things between 1945, and, the event of Second World War, the cleaning of the system, economic downtrend, political tension, to the Cold War, and then how we got Russia out of scale. And then what we are doing in Nigeria now, which is very unique, very, very new, is that I've introduced N20, Nigeria plus 20 country, to talk about the role of non-state actor interface with the United Nations. Because we are now realizing that both the state actors, violent and non-violent, but not non-violent state actors, they are seen not to be members of the United Nations. And they are excluded from all our program. But they control 70% of the resources. Interesting. Who produce the guns? Who produce the missiles? Who produce the drones? The non-state actors. And you are saying that United Nations, you don't know, they are not sovereign states, they cannot be part of you. During my time as chair of budget and admin, they will be part of you. We must set up something within the headquarters to engage them. And that the only thing I know Security Council doesn't want to hear which was a funny proposal, is that the General Assembly demanded that, okay, part of this reform, you send 2 names to us from Security Council to the General Assembly as appointable people for Secretary General. We will pick one. They said, never, never, never. And we're intending with that. So they sent one name to you to the General Assembly, and that name must be announced as the Secretary General of the United Nations. Isn't that amazing? So the General Assembly have no choice. Once the name is sent by Security Council, so be it. And then, but Nigeria is coming with a very new model, very unique. Nobody has ever done that in the world. By saying that, hey, come. Alibaba is doing $20 billion half a day revenue in cash. China is now even borrowing cash from Alibaba as a company. Are you saying Alibaba should not have anything to do with United Nations? In fact, we are even saying now that they should send permanent representatives to the United Nations. Aliko Dangote have built a refinery in Nigeria, which is working. My very good brother and friend. Aliko Dangote Group should send a permanent rep to the United Nations. Is Aliko not bigger than Sao Tome in economy?
So maybe like an observer status.
Observer status, so beautiful. So, but they should be part of us. If you exclude Aliko and he's the one producing your Aviation jet, and you say he's on the anything about United Nations operations, how does that look like?
Interesting.
Wale Tinubu is into oil and gas. Can they send observer to the United Nations?
Interesting.
So these are the issues that I will look. So we are doing the N20.
N20. So N is for Nigeria, and then there are other 20 countries.
N for Nigeria symbolically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who are going to support this?
We're going to have a secretariat inside the UN Secretariat building. Yeah, so we're going to request.
So can you tell us some of the countries in the
G77, they have secretariats?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
okay, so G54, 84, also have secretariats, and they are G, okay, they say G77 plus China.
Yeah.
So this one is N22 plus 0.
Can you tell us some of the countries?
No, I cannot tell you that because we already have, we even have more than enough 22. You know, and out of the 22, I can tell you at least 4 of the superpower country are part of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it's N, because it's our own idea. So it's my own idea. So it's Nigeria idea. I'm just nobody. Nigeria is one I represent.
Fantastic.
So that's why I call it N. Nigeria 20. So this N20 members will meet very soon, and they will tell you maybe in every 10 years we admit more members, but we don't admit members immediately.
But when are you going to launch it? Because
well, we are appointing Professor Ibrahim Gambari as the interim coordinator of N20, and once members, we are trying to see how to raise some little fund for secretariat. So if I can put some 100,000 there, then you have enough money to start. We don't want to tax anybody. Let us start. What we are saying is that the non-state actors that are non-violent, Google, Alibaba, and all of these people, they could have observers in the United Nations. Dangote, Apple, Microsoft, they should have observers.
And the Somali billionaire, what's his name again? Yeah, that guy.
Elon Musk should also be. So these observers, because they are about 70% of the economy in their hands. So if they are in the non-state actor category, they can serve observer to the United Nations. It means we will see their own activities, they will see our own activities. And we have a wider lens, but we can see them more than they can see us. But we can really have a convergence and work together to develop a stable geocentric system that is less tensioned and better for humanity.
Thank you so much.
And human.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That we spent an hour
already.
Thank you so much. I know that we're going to flow very freely. Thank you so much for coming to Inside Sources.
Thank you.
Thank you for your insightful contribution.